Hello, my name's Tim Hughes. I'm the Director of Communications for the Spirit Invest Group. Today, I want to reflect on the outcome of the South African national and provincial elections and talk a little bit about the very important document called the Statement of Intent. So the results of the election showed that the African National Congress had dropped to just over 40%, the DA 22%. Surprisingly, Jacob Zuma's Umkhonto we Sizwe party something over 14%, and the EFF had dropped below 10%. So emerging from that is the acceptance by the African National Congress of the formation or the establishment of a government of national unity, very different to 1994, insofar as the government of national unity now is reflecting a weakness on the part of the African National Congress and the desire and the needs to govern with other parties. So the deal was hammered out on the 14th of June, and the president announced the intention to form a government of national unity, which hasn't yet been formed. He was inaugurated yesterday as I speak. But underpinning all this is a very interesting and important document called a Statement of Intent, which was signed originally by the African National Congress, Secretary General Fikile Mbalula, and the federal chairperson of the DA, Helen Zille. It's subsequently been signed by the Inkatha Freedom Party, and there's an indication now that other parties will join or wish to join the Government of National Unity, such as the UDM, and parties such as the Pan-Africanist Congress and even the Good Party of Patricia de Lille as well. So it's starting to look as if the Government of National Unity may have at least 7 parties attached to it, excluding, or those that excluded themselves, MK and the EFF. So what about this document, the Statement of Intent? It's about 12 pages long, but very importantly, it has some very important principles that bind the parties to it. Firstly, they adhere to constitutionalism, which is exactly what we need in South Africa, of course. It's interesting that they bind themselves to a form of sufficient consensus in decision-making. You require 60% of the parties in the legislature to agree to these issues. Very importantly, it commits itself to clean governance. It commits itself to a professional civil service. It commits itself to rapid economic growth and transformation, investment in health, education. It commits the parties to improving security as well. But it also says there'll be a dialogue formed, a lekgotla, after the GNU is formed, and a dialogue that will include civil society, business, political parties. In other words, we're getting very much closer to that which the president said he would establish 2 years ago, which is a social compact. And the Statement of Intent actually provides the basis for this. If you look at the composition of the election manifestos, you can see where there's synergy between the parties in terms of the manifestos, particularly, commitment to economic growth and to transformation and social justice. But what will come out of this, and what is the most fascinating part of this Statement of Intent, is the proportionality, or the GNU that will operate at the government level, so within the executive branch, and in the legislative branch, in other words, in Parliament. And we've already seen that with the establishment of the Speaker of Parliament, Toko Didiza from the African National Congress, and the Deputy Speaker now, Honourable Letreat, coming from the Democratic Alliance. A very important position in Parliament is the Chair of Chairs, who's really in charge of all the parliamentary committees. And that position is going to an IFP member. So what the Statement of Intent says is that government or government positions and legislative positions should broadly be in proportion to the votes achieved. So if we look at that, 40% of cabinet positions would be allocated, theoretically, of course, to the African National Congress, 20% to the DA and others. But if you look at that in terms of the composition of government, you could see that, for example, the DA is likely to achieve 5 seats in government, or 5 ministerial positions, the IFP probably 2 more, and 1 or 2 parties such as the Progressive Alliance and others achieving 1 or 2 positions. What's critical and what we don't know yet, and what we'll discuss in the next video, is what those positions are. Obviously, the prize positions, ministerial positions, are those of finance, trade and industry, defense, and international relations. And those are the ones probably the African National Congress would be least likely to let go, including the deputy presidency. But those are the ones that the Democratic would like to get their hands on as well, particularly in the economic cluster. So we're probably, as we're talking now, probably about a week away from the Government of National Unity being finally cobbled out, all the government positions being allocated, and then the hard work starts in terms of establishing the government. But for those of you who are viewing, I would recommend you have a look at the final agreement that was cobbled between the parties to the GNU. The statement of intent is a very, very important document, and if it forms the basis of the GNU, South Africa will have a much brighter future.